Hello, welcome back. We're still in Austin, Texas. Not sure if you can tell. We just came back from a customer event and we got free hats, and you cannot say no to this. And we thought we'd do a quick summary of what we learned this week. We had a really good experience connecting with fellow executives, talking about what's real and what's not real about Gen AI implementations.
And there are 3 takeaways we want to share with you today. For me, the biggest takeaway that created a lot of discussions, how you get through experimentations. We talked about it in our last video as well, that 90% of the companies are still stuck in this cycle. And I think the biggest takeaway was experimentation is needed. This technology is developing. You need to figure out what works or what part of the technology works. But the way to overcome and avoid having 1,000 flowers bloom and nothing really lead to outcome is pick a direction. Identify something that's really impactful for your business, where you really need to make an impact, and experiment on the how, not on the what. So try out proof of concepts, not to check whether it's a good idea. Commit to an idea and check the technology. And if the technology doesn't lead to where you want to go, maybe the LLM model you picked is not great enough, or your search, then you pivot on the how, but you still pursue the direction where you're going.
It was interesting. A lot of companies, especially large companies that were in the session, said we probably have hundreds of experimentations going at any one time. And it almost sounded like pride, but it isn't. Because none of them, if you add up all the experimentation, the experiments don't actually add up to anything. They're not going to move the needle for anything specifically. So I really like the conversation around pick a direction, commit to a direction, and then experiment within the constraints of it. So I thought it was a great takeaway.
Yeah. What was the other takeaway for you?
There was a really interesting conversation about core and non-core. I think because of all the issues around hallucination and risk and data problems around generative AI, people thought, hey, why don't I just use generative AI in areas that nobody pays attention to in the context of the business? Don't touch the core. Core is important. Just use it somewhere else. And of course, others said, well, why do it at all? I mean, is this basically an education exercise? If you go back to our 4E model, I mean, you're going to just keep, playing with the tool, and that's not going to do anything. You're in experimentation mode, you're in education mode, but you never graduate because the problems you're solving are not that important for the business. So there was a really interesting debate about, do you solve problems in the core business, meaning that's mission critical for you, or do you just solve in areas where it's not going to disrupt the business? And there were pros and cons.
Yeah.
And I thought what was interesting is, if you think your competitors are solving core problems and you could lose, then you go to the core. If you think nobody in your industry is really solving core problems, then maybe you take a lower risk area. You still want to probably move the needle, but it's less important. So I thought it was, again, all of us are working with hypotheses, but I thought it was a really good discussion.
That was good. And as you said, the key takeaway is, if your core will be disrupted, either your competitor, or if you believe Gen AI might disrupt your core, then you cannot afford to wait.
So that was a pretty good second one.
And then for me, the third one was a big discussion about what's coming next. Is multimodal will change the game and that opens a whole array of use cases? Or is agency gonna be the most important part to scale up to enterprise grade? And there's a lot of discussion around that, but I think the consensus was that really agency is going to be a game changer for enterprise use cases, because we need to get to a point where it's no longer just content creation, but action is taken. Because to solve complex end-to-end processes, you need to link things to each other, and that needs to lead to action.
Yeah, this agency, I mean, I think there's a lot of discussion around agency, and typically people think about like AI should do something. And what was interesting in our conversation, AI should do an end-to-end process. So that means that you're going to have to string together a set of actions or a lot of actions. And there were examples in these conversations about how that could happen, anywhere from healthcare claims management to customer service. And these are complex things. And I think the consensus was you have to get beyond cute. You have to get beyond easy solutions that actually start solving more complex ones, because that's when it's going to get real. And it was interesting for me because we had hyperscalers, we had frontier model vendors in the room, and of course they're thinking way beyond all of these things. One of the conversation is now you can upload a picture of a balloon and it's going to find that balloon in a video stream, which is super cool, but is that a problem that you and I need to solve in our normal business? Probably not, unless we're in a balloon making business.
And so these were the three things. It's core versus context and where you invest. How you get beyond experimentation for experimentation's sake and commit to a direction and pivot just on the how, and how to harvest agency. But for me, there was 1+1, which was universally recognized, that education is critical. This is not a technology, nobody has the book on it. We only need to learn it and discover it and be exposed to it. So for me, that's led to a lot of very lively discussions.
It's interesting, we keep coming back to it. We don't know, nobody knows how the model works. Yeah. We talk to the people that make the model, they don't know how the model works. But also, nobody really understands the problem you can solve. So we're all in a collective learning. And one of the interesting things for us for this event was, it was a learning conversation. Nobody was pitching anybody. We were all sitting around the table and learning from each other. How do you approach this? How do you approach this? And I think it's a revealing experience. And I think we all need to be modest about our focus, even if you think you're ahead of the game, you really understand what Gen AI is, and you're a prompt engineer extraordinaire. We don't know what next week is going to be like, or 2 weeks later. So these models keep evolving, the use cases keep evolving, and we're in a constant learning mode. So that was one of my takeaways. We think we sort of get it, but we learn every day. So this was useful. Every 100 episodes, we're probably going to wear a hat. So this may be a thing. But for now, thanks for joining us. We'll come back hopefully more frequently now.
Thank you. Please join us. Share your thoughts, reactions, share resources that you are using to learn. We will put some of ours.
Absolutely. And let us know if you like his hat or my hat. It's important.
And with that, Austin is out.
Well, we rode into Austin town, I imagine, 2024, where the air was buzzing with AI talk, and we learned a whole lot more. Executives gathered around the fire, sharing tales and bright ideas, from experimentation cycles to the next big pioneers. Yeehaw, we're breaking through in the AI rodeo. Picking our path and riding strong, it's the only way to go. Core, non-core, we wrangle the right with G&A at the reins. With multimodal and agency, we're conquering new domains.